You know, your backyard, it's supposed to be your own private little sanctuary, right? Your safe space. But what happens when that feeling of comfort is just shattered? When the one place you feel the most secure becomes the setting for your absolute deepest fears? Well, today we're going to dive into 3 true stories where the horror wasn't in some far-off haunted house, but literally right outside the back door. Just think about that line for a second. That's the exact moment a perfectly normal night flips into a total nightmare. It's that chilling, stomach-dropping realization that you are not alone. Let's get into our first story. All right, so our first story kicks off with something that should be a totally innocent memory, a backyard campout. For a little kid named Chris, this was supposed to be a fun adventure with his older brother, Scott, but it turned into a night that he would never, ever forget. So the night started exactly how you'd picture it. 2 brothers, they set up the tent, they're roasting marshmallows, and then, of course, they play video games until they finally pass out. It sounds like a scene straight out of some nostalgic movie. But as you can see, this timeline takes a really dark turn when Chris wakes up alone in the middle of the night. I mean, can you imagine that feeling? Waking up in the pitch dark and realizing the person who was right next to you is just gone? Chris's first thought is, maybe his brother just went inside the house. But he's scared to be alone, so he goes to unzip the tent, but then he hesitates and decides to just peek out first. And that is when he sees him. A grown man, a total stranger, just sitting there by their fire pit, staring directly at the tent. Chris gasps. He yanks the tent zipper shut and he dives back into his sleeping bag, absolutely paralyzed with fear. He just knows he was seen. And this is where the horror gets up close and personal. The man gets up from the fire. A shadow falls over the tent. Chris is just holding his breath, praying the guy will just go away. But then he hears it, that unmistakable zipping sound, the zipper on his tent, opening very, very slowly. It's such a terrifying detail, right? Through this tiny little gap where the zipper doesn't quite close all the way, there's an eye pressed right up against the fabric, staring directly at him. The man on the other side then squints, almost like he's smiling. And that's the moment Chris finally finds his voice and just screams. And you'd think, okay, the nightmare's over. But it wasn't. It follows him. Weeks later, he's at school during recess, and a man walks up to the schoolyard fence. He starts by asking for directions, but then he looks right at Chris and says his name. And with this little smile, he asks, "You don't remember me, do you?" This wasn't some random thing. He was being watched. Okay, let's shift gears for our second story. This one starts with something a lot of us have probably done. You're trying to find a good deal on Facebook Marketplace. Seems harmless enough, but for this person, it led them to a place that, well, it defied all logic. So the setup is pretty simple. There's a great price on some furniture, an address that leads to this beautiful cliffside house, and a note on the door that says to go around back. So our narrator gets there, messages the seller, nothing, no response. So he decides to just wait in the backyard, checking out the amazing ocean view, but something just feels off. He turns away from the ocean, starts to head back towards the house, and just freezes, stops dead in his tracks. Because in those few minutes he was looking away, something about the house behind him had completely, fundamentally changed. And here's the first thing that makes his blood run cold. He specifically remembers that when he walked into the backyard, all the window blinds on the house were closed. But now every single one is wide open. A silent, perfectly coordinated action that makes absolutely no sense. But it gets so much worse. It's not just that the blinds are open. In every single window, there is a person, just standing there, perfectly still, like mannequins in a department store. They don't move a muscle. They just watch him. He's trying to make sense of what he's seeing, right? So he looks closer. And then the most important, horrifying detail hits him. Every single person in every window has the exact same expression on their face. A wide, totally unnatural smile. He doesn't even think. He just runs for his car. He realizes this was never a sale. It was a lure. So for our last story, the threat gets even closer. I mean, way too close. This isn't just someone watching from the woods or some strange house with smiling people. This is about that terrifying moment when the line between outside and inside is just completely erased.
It all starts with something really small, almost nothing. While setting up for a pool party, the homeowner hears this really distinct cough coming from the woods next to his house, a place where nobody should be. He kind of brushes it off. The party happens, everyone has a great time, but long after all the guests are gone, at 2 a.m, another sound just shatters the silence.
He's lying in bed, trying to get to sleep, and then splash. A loud splash. He knows it's not an animal or a tree branch. It's the unmistakable sound of a person jumping into his swimming pool. So he gets up and he looks out his window. And he sees a man, a total stranger he's never seen before, just calmly swimming laps in his pool. When the homeowner yells out the window, the man doesn't get scared, he doesn't run away. He just stops, looks right up at the window, climbs out of the pool, and starts walking with this creepy purpose directly toward the house. The homeowner hears the sliding glass door slide open, a door he knows was locked. He runs into his bedroom, locks the door, and frantically calls 911. And what happens next is just pure auditory terror. Where what you hear is way scarier than what you see. Wet footsteps on the hardwood floor, coming up the stairs, stopping right outside his bedroom door. The handle jiggles. Then, 3 slow, deliberate knock. After the homeowner screams that the police are on their way, a voice comes from the other side of the door. But it's not a shout, it's not a threat. It's a calm, low voice that says this possessive, absolutely chilling command. This wasn't a random burglar. This guy acted like he belonged there. Okay, so after hearing all of that, you have to wonder, right? What is it about these particular scenarios that gets under our skin so effectively? Let's try to break down the common elements here. Well, first off, every single story attacks our deepest sense of security. They invade the one place we are supposed to feel completely safe, our own home. And the terror is cranked up to 11 because it's coming from a stranger, with no clear reason why. It just preys on that primal human fear of being watched. There's no logic to it. And in every case, the tension builds slowly, deliberately, leading to this big climax that only ends because of a narrow, really lucky escape. And that, right there, is the thought that just lingers. All of these narrators were lucky. They screamed at the right moment, they ran at the right moment, they locked a door at the right moment. Their stories are this chilling reminder that the real monsters aren't in fairy tales. Sometimes they're just on the other side of your fence. And it really makes you wonder, what about the ones who don't escape?